An unnamed soldier is talking to his base, telling them he's the only survivor of his combat unit before his contact is cut off, and he is killed by Krantz. Several survivors are trying to escape when they are killed by Hammer and Shark. Watching from his base, Tao tells the group the target they're looking for isn't at that location and sends Takeo to intercept. Takeo takes out the soldiers easily and apprehends the target. Shark and Hammer are complaining that they weren't satisfied killing all those people and were hoping for more action. Krantz tells them to stop complaining and informs his team that they have a new mission, and they're to head to Japan. In Japan, we see Razel staring up at the full moon, standing outside on the balcony. Tashiro Shinwoo and Manabu Ikan are walking to school in the morning and are surprised to see a new guard. The two greet M21, and after he inquires about Tashiro's arm, he explains that he got into a car accident protecting Manabu. Frankenstein and Razel are watching events from his office. In a flashback, M21 tells them about the Union and about the rest of the M-series experiments, and also gives them further information on Jake and Mary. He explains that he is the only survivor and expresses regret at not being able to save his comrade. Frankenstein states he is free to stay with them if he needs a place to stay and offers him a job at his school. Back to the present, Razel tells Frankenstein he is ready, and Frankenstein opens his desk drawer wondering if his master is going to try what he suggested last night. Razel enters the classroom and heads towards Tashiro and Manabu. He stares at Tashiro's cast for a while before taking out a pen and drawing a cute cat on it. Frankenstein sits in his office wondering if his master is enjoying himself. Tashiro uses his phone and takes a picture of what's written on Mr. Fedor's Mr. Park blackboard. At lunch, Razel is waiting for his ramen to grow when he overhears a student on the phone tell his parents he'll be late since he's hanging out with a friend after school. At the end of the day, the students are heading home. Manabu asks Razel if he'd like to come over to his house, but then they remember he lives with the director and doesn't have a phone. Razel meets with Frankenstein and M21 on the roof of the school and tells him about his day. He tells him about the children having something he lacks, and after dropping several hints, Frankenstein realizes he's talking about a mobile phone. Frankenstein tells him that he'll get one for him as soon as possible. The next day at school, M21 is greeting students at the gate when Tashiro calls him an old man, making M21 cringe. In the classroom, they notice Razel has a smartphone and Manabu teaches him how to use it. Razel sends an email to Frankenstein, which makes Frankenstein happy. M21 is watching the students play in the courtyard, and the janitor approaches him and tells him the school is a great place and speaks highly of the director. A car swerves into the courtyard, almost running over a few students. A gang starts harassing the students, looking for Tashiro. M21 notices the incident and wants to help, but is reluctant because he's keeping a low profile. The janitor steps in to tell the leader that vehicles aren't permitted here and that he should leave. Having had enough, the leader breaks the janitor's broom and is about to punch him when Tashiro steps in. The man is angry because Tashiro apparently made a move on his girlfriend. When Manabu asks him about it, Tashiro explains he was on his way to school when the man's girlfriend tripped. He caught her, and that was it. He tells the man's girlfriend to explain the situation, which she refuses to do, so Tashiro has no option but to fight. Tashiro successfully avoids a few attacks by the man before a blow lands. M21 is still unsure about stepping in when he senses Razel behind him. He wonders why Razel is staring at him like that as the man continues to attack Tashiro. Getting up, Tashiro manages to land a blow before being knocked back. The janitor steps in a second time, and the guy picks him up by the scruff of the neck, when M21 approaches, telling him to let the janitor go. The man attempts to punch M21, who avoids the attack and grabs him by the chain he's wearing. M21 doesn't budge when the man tries to get up, and instead flings him against the bonnet of another car. He kneels next to the man and tells him if no one was watching, he'd be dead. The man tells his gang they're leaving, and they all get in their car and take off. The children thank M21 and compliment his strength as Razel goes back to his ramen, which has grown sufficiently. Later in the evening, M21 is standing on the balcony and recalls his past. He wishes for an ordinary life and remembers the promise he made to find their names. Frankenstein approaches him and mentions he heard what happened at the school. M21 apologizes and Frankenstein tells him to restrain himself so as to not kill anyone. M21 tells him he made a promise that he wishes to keep and asks Frankenstein if he can live with them. Frankenstein states it's what he suggested from the beginning. Frankenstein goes and talks with his master, stating he understands his decision to let him stay with them. M21, still on the balcony, looks out at the night sky and swears to keep his promise. On a rooftop in Japan, Da5 are discussing their mission of investigating Jake and Mary's deaths, as well as looking into the disappearance of 2 failed experiments. After the end credits, we see Sarah J., Loyard, and Regis K. Landegger looking out across the city. Regis and Sarah investigate one of the most recent incidents that were covered up in news reports as a psycho causing the damage, since from what they can see, it is far beyond a mere human's capabilities. Regis elaborates that this is something they must handle in their own way and that the humans cannot control it. The two appear at school in uniforms, demanding for M21 to take them to the one in charge. Frankenstein wonders what Regis and Sarah are doing there and dismisses M21 to leave the room. Regis attempts to control Frankenstein, who recognizes this power to be similar to Razel's. Regis dictates they will be transfer students and they need the necessary arrangements. Frankenstein realizes that the pair in front of him have no idea that he is not an ordinary human and plays along with their demands. Tashiro is assigned to take care of Regis and Sarah. Regis notices that Razel has an abnormal aura, yet does not catch on that he is more than human. At lunch, Regis fails at using chopsticks. Meanwhile, Tashiro notices that Manabu is awestruck by Sarah. Tashiro asks Razel if he is free after school so they can play Cupid. M21 and Frankenstein discuss the new students and Razel. Frankenstein explains that Razel is a noble, and the history of how nobles are beings with powers that protect humans. M21 makes the connection that Sarah and Regis are also nobles. It is also shown that Tashiro broke his arm during one of the incidents and not actually a car accident where he tried to save Manabu. Razel had wiped his mind of the incident. Frankenstein comes home to Razel having company over, said company being Sarah, Regis, Tashiro, and Manabu. Frankenstein instantly notices the mess and organizes all of their snacks. Tashiro then proposes Regis and Sarah stay with Razel, much to Frankenstein's displeasure. Frankenstein plays along with what Razel is okay with. Sarah asks Frankenstein if there is anything she can help with and notices a tattoo on M21's arm. She later tells Regis this and identifies it as something belonging to the Union, specifically experimental subjects. Regis then confronts M21 in private, explaining he dislikes men who abandon their humanity to gain power. He inquires about M21's knowledge of the recent events that took place. M21 attempts to play it off, but Regis persists by asking if it was done by the Union's orders. He explains his aim to regain the power that is far beyond human control, meaning what was in the coffin. When walking home after school, Tashiro is confronted by a group of bullies. They point out their interest in Sarah, a pretty foreign woman. Before Tashiro realizes it, a knife is being held to Razel's neck. M21 assures Regis that the ones who stole the coffin are already dead. Regis has yet to realize that the Noblesse has already escaped the coffin. This results in a fight between the two. During the battle, Sarah telepathically informs Regis about what is transpiring on her end. Tashiro has began a fight with a group of assailants that seem to be targeting him. Regis and M21 arrive to the fight and Regis is taken aback by the way Tashiro fights so vehemently. M21 explains humans can fight when they have something driving them. M21 de-escalates the fight and sends the assailants running. Tashiro yells out to them to jump him when he is alone rather than when he is with his friends. On the walk home, M21 explains to Regis that humans do not need nobles anymore and that he is unsure what Regis is trying to protect. He states humans have changed and says that Regis should not trample over the human world. The two then devolve into a petty argument. In the after-credits scene, M21 and Regis are still arguing over petty matters while seated around a table back at Frankenstein's home with Frankenstein, Razel, and Sarah. Frankenstein, in an attempt to lighten the mood, asks if anyone has requests for dinner, causing Razel to ask for ramen. Regis is unable to tell when or if his brainwashing works on Razel. He believes he has control of Frankenstein. Tao informs his team of the reports done on the incident. Meanwhile, a teammate points out it was clearly a battle between super-powered individuals. Tao mentions that the whereabouts of M21 and M24 are unknown. The team decides to apprehend them if they find them, assuming they are alive since they are not being confirmed as dead. Tashiro then assumes that Manabu likes guys more than girls, as he notices that Manabu is extremely eager to be with Regis rather than Sarah. Later, on the roof, Regis and M21 exchange banter and threats if one or the other steps out of line. That night, Manabu is doing security checks for his uncle while hanging out with Tashiro. He notices someone is trying to hack the server while he is on and barrages back with a virus. Tao, who is doing the hacking, finds this to be fun and enjoys a playful exchange between them. He then goes on to double his hacking and Manabu is unable to block everything Tao is doing. Tashiro enters the room with food and accidentally unplugs Manabu's computer, keeping him from protecting the server. Tao then stops his attack. Tao sends Manabu a message asking what happened and Tashiro replies for him. Tashiro then believes Manabu is chatting with a girl. That doesn't last long as he learns Tao is a guy. Tashiro then comes to the conclusion Manabu is gay and vows to beat up anyone that messes with him for it. In that brief time, Tao manages to get everything he needed from the servers and finds surveillance footage of M21. Hammer and Shark are then tasked with capturing M21. At Frankenstein's home, Regis and M21 share another dispute. M21 reveals to Regis he is in human society to maintain a promise to an old friend. Frankenstein then orders everyone to clean up, except for Razel. Regis then fusses about Razel not helping, causing him to start cleaning up too. Frankenstein dreads this. The next day, Frankenstein gives M21 a card that all his wages are being deposited in. M21 ponders his situation as he is just a modified human that was considered a failure but is now working as a normal human. Shark and Hammer confront M21 while he is alone at night. Shark then provokes M21 by mocking M24. This morphs into an altercation between Shark and M21. Shark and Hammer are way too powerful for M21, and he is cornered. M21 sustains a large amount of damage from Shark. Regis and Sarah appear behind M21 and Regis mocks Shark and Hammer's appearances. He knows from on-site that Hammer and Shark are not normal humans. Shark then charges at Regis and M21 throws his body in front of Regis to protect him. Krantz then arrives and scolds Shark for trying to kill M21. M21 decides to cooperate with Krantz as it gives him a chance to learn his comrades and his own real names, leaving Regis to believe that M21 lied about his promise and he truly is on a mission. In the after-credits scene, Razel attempts to vacuum. Manabu and Tao are at it again, with Manabu protecting the servers and Tao breaching them. Regis and Sarah return home, where Sarah explains to Frankenstein that M21 left with his friends because he had some sort of mission. Frankenstein believes this and realizes that this may be troublesome for Razel if true. M21 is interrogated by Da5 and realizes that they have no idea he betrayed the Union. They also believe M21 is on some sort of special mission where he cannot tell anyone what he is doing. M21 then makes a condition that Krantz agrees to. If M21 can learn more about his comrades and himself, then he will tell them everything they want to know. Manabu gets a message from Tao for an offline meetup. Tao confesses to hacking the server every day because he had fun going back and forth with Manabu and confides in him that he is surrounded by people that do not appreciate his talents. The two easily bond over the way they are disregarded for their talents. Meanwhile, Tashiro defends a foreigner being mugged. The foreigner being Takeo, who plays the part of not knowing Japan very well. They walk together briefly before Tashiro has to go to the director's home to hang out. Back at their hideout, Tao and Takeo discuss Tao possibly searching for Takeo's sister. It is revealed that Takeo's sister being held hostage by the Union is the only reason he is in the team. Takeo tells Tao to not bother with it and is emotionally unavailable to Tao's attempts of helping him. Shark threatens to kill M21 and Takeo has to stop him from going too far again. Shark then calls Takeo soft and says he killed everyone Takeo has spared in the past. Takeo draws his gun on Shark, not wanting to let him get away with it anymore. Tao tries to hold Takeo back. Shark even says that the Union has probably already killed Takeo's sister. He then adds that he is merely doing what Krantz orders him to do. This makes Takeo drop his weapon, distraught. Shark then goes after Regis, determined to leave no witnesses alive. Regis mocks Shark, stating there is no way a weakling like Shark can hurt him. A battle ensues and Shark determines Regis as the Noblesse that escaped. Hammer then tosses Shark a pill that makes him transform. As Regis is about to defeat Shark, Hammer brings Tashiro and Manabu to drop them by his feet. He states that if Regis doesn't want anything to happen to them, he will cooperate. Regis reluctantly obeys. Shark then brings the kids and Regis to their hideout, unconscious and bound. In the after-credits scene, Frankenstein praises Sarah for helping with dinner. She then feels her mental connection with Regis get severed. Regis awakens to see every one of the elite team around him with M21. He is reminded that if he tries anything, the kids will die. Tashiro awakes and wakes up Manabu. Tashiro recognizes Takeo and Manabu recognizes Tao. Manabu asks Tao what is going on, which causes Shark and Hammer to laugh at how Manabu calls Tao boss. Shark and Hammer explains all of this is happening because of M21. Sarah sets out to recover Regis while Razel and Frankenstein do the same. Shark continues to beat Tashiro. Tao and Takeo try to suggest that they do not need to go that far, but Krantz says they will be eliminated. While Hammer is getting food, he notices Sarah entering the building. Sarah requests that Hammer steps aside, but he barrages her with explosives instead. She retaliates by effortlessly slicing him across his chest. As Shark begins to choke Tashiro to death, M21 is left with an internal conflict of whether or not he should try to save the kids or learn his comrades' names. M21 then has a revelation that M24 will forgive him for trying to save the kids instead. Frankenstein and Razel are then met with Takeo on the roof. Frankenstein urges Razel to go ahead without him so he can fight Takeo. Regis breaks from his restraints and begins to fight Shark as M21 was rendered unable to fight. Krantz then takes a pill and kills Shark, absorbing his power. He reveals that D is only meant to magnify his power once a user gets used to taking it. Razel then enters. The after-credits scene shows Frankenstein and Razel on the way to save Manabu and Tashiro, with Razel pausing to have some ramen straight from the packet as a snack. Takeo threatens to kill Razel, causing Frankenstein to release his true power. Below, Razel demonstrates his mind control effortlessly by bringing Krantz down to the ground. Sarah's battle with Hammer ensues. She summons her soul weapon, Death Scythe, and brings part of the building down on him before leaving. Frankenstein remarks that he has disobeyed his master and drives a spike through Takeo's side. He continues to overwhelm Takeo effortlessly. Takeo accepts this fate rather quickly and considers it to be punishment for all the innocent people that died because of him until a memory of his sister brings back his fighting spirit. He manages to resist Frankenstein's spears and grazes Frankenstein with a bullet. Krantz is no match for Razel and orders Tao to take his drug so he can be absorbed. Tao reluctantly complies, believing this is his fate as a modified human. Manabu pleads for Razel to save him. Inevitably, Frankenstein wins the battle, and as he is about to kill him, Sarah appears. Frankenstein points out her soul weapon that signifies she is a high-ranking noble, as she notes he is not a normal human. Takeo and Sarah have already met prior, so Takeo asks Sarah to save Tashiro. Frankenstein decides to spare Takeo and tells him to apologize to Tashiro himself. Tao decides to resist Krantz to save the kids. Krantz then decides to absorb Tao as he is, causing Razel to make Krantz freeze in place so Tao can escape his grip. Razel tells Manabu and Toshiro not to beg him to help as they don't need to. Then, Razel begins to bend the blood around him. Regis recognizes this ability to be extremely powerful. With this, Razel takes Krantz out in seconds. M21 and Takeo awaken in the director's home. Takeo first asks about the kids and M21 assures him that they are fine and he can talk to Tao about it later. Razel coughs up blood due to strain from the power he used. Frankenstein apologizes for using his power without Razel's consent, but Razel says that he doesn't need to worry about it and forgives him. At dinner, Tao raves about how good all of the food is. M21 and Takeo enter the room and Frankenstein invites them to sit and eat as well. M21 and Regis bicker back and forth as usual. While M21 is outside alone, Razel approaches him, offering to release his true power briefly to prove that he is not weak. Meanwhile, Tao informs Takeo that their old team was basically fodder for Krantz to expand his power. Tao informs Takeo that he does not have a sister, and that the Union has been tampering with his memories. This devastates Takeo and Tao suggests they leave tomorrow to not be a burden. As they leave, M21 asks Frankenstein if Tao and Takeo can live with them, with Frankenstein assuring him that it is fine. After the credits, Frankenstein asks Razel about Regis and Sarah's reactions to his power, with Razel misunderstanding and responding about ramen flavors instead. Toshiro and Manabu are walking to school for the first time after the Da5 incident. It's mentioned that they recuperated at Frankenstein's house, giving Toshiro the time to read the entirety of a shoujo manga series that had a character reminding him of Razel. This segues into Toshiro complaining about not being popular with girls, with it immediately being displayed when they walk into the school grounds where the female students are flocking around M21, and the newly hired guards Takeo and Tao. Manabu greets Tao, and then arrives Razel with Regis and Sarah. The female students are excited to see Razel, glaring at Toshiro when he greets him to his confusion. Watching them from the windows of a stairwell is Frankenstein, who has a flashback to Razel telling him that he likes how things are currently. This makes Frankenstein conclude that Razel has already made his mystery decision. In class, Toshiro is constantly sighing about girls again, which makes Mr. Fedor wonder if he's going crazy. Meanwhile, M21, Takeo, and Tao are walking down a hall talking about the importance of this normal life as M21 tells two schoolgirls not to run in the halls. At lunch, the complaints from Toshiro only continue as he points out Razel's fangirls. Manabu, in an attempt to help Toshiro, asks Razel how Toshiro can be popular, though it only results in Toshiro saying any help will be useless after some of the female students collapse at Razel's thinking response. Manabu then asks what Toshiro's type is, at which Regis and Sarah walk in, leaving Toshiro blushing when he sees her. Fully supportive, Manabu decides to help him, roping Razel in as well. The trio of guards are being questioned by schoolgirls when Manabu, Razel, and Toshiro approach them, making Toshiro depressed again. They take the trio to a secluded location where Manabu asks for advice. The trio are willing to help until they find out it's about love, at which point they attempt to escape, though they are prevented by Manabu and Toshiro clinging to them, begging for help. When they find out Toshiro has a crush on Sarah, they're impressed, but still want to leave and only start helping when Razel asks them to. Tao's first search brings up an outdated date plan to the disco. When Takeo tries to give an example scenario, he can't complete it out of embarrassment, glaring at Toshiro when he complains and brings up how smooth Takeo's persona when they first met was. They then go to Frankenstein's office where they ask him if he's ever had trouble with women. Manabu and Toshiro are eager to hear what he has to say until it turns out he was just another natural at attracting girls and women. Frankenstein freezes in the middle of his boasting when Razel takes a particularly loud sip of his tea. The next person they ask is Regis, who has no answer about Sarah's preferences and refutes the possibility of them dating. M21 states that Regis wasn't going to be of help anyway, and they start their petty arguments as usual. Once more, when Razel asks Regis to help, he kneels and agrees. In the library, Toshiro is sitting at a table with everyone so far except Frankenstein around him as Regis tells him to write Sarah a letter. There is little progress on the love letter as Toshiro's attempts are too casual, and everyone's suggestions are vetoed with Tashiro giving up on writing it. He crumples up the lined paper and throws it without paying any attention, leading it to end up at Reisel's feet. Looking down from where he's standing reading a book, his expression shifts to a small smile. The next plan is a basketball game with the help of Manabu, the trio, Reisel, and Regis to show off Tashiro's skills. Mr. Fedor questions it walking in, but Regis uses mind control to make him go along with it. The attempt is a failure with Reisel not being good at basketball, M21 and Regis competing against each other as usual, and Takeo forgetting he was meant to help when at the end of the game he blocks Tashiro and scores the winning point for his team from across the court. When Reisel leaves the gymnasium, Frankenstein is waiting for him by the door. As the sun sets, Manabu apologizes for things not working out as both he and Tashiro sit on a bench. Tashiro says it's fine since Sarah isn't obligated to return his feelings anyway, making Manabu proud of him. Regis and Sarah walk by, shocking Tashiro, with Regis saying not to make a mess if they come by to Frankenstein's house. Sarah stops to return Tashiro's love letter, making him question who gave it to her when she answers it was on her desk. She also tells Tashiro that his emotions are a natural part of life and there's nothing wrong with them, as well as that she thinks people are most charming when they're being themselves. This lifts the burden from Tashiro, and he blushes when she picks up his bag and gives it to him. As she walks away, Manabu asks if she smiled. At Frankenstein's house, all its occupants are gathered in the living room. Regis states that the mystery decision is the natural course of action, with Manabu, Sarah, and Tashiro arriving just after. They pick up on the atmosphere and Tashiro asks what's wrong. When told that their memories will be erased, they're upset and Frankenstein explains this has happened before with a flashback to episode 0. Tashiro is emotional and argues against it, with Regis and M21 explaining this is for their protection due to the danger of the Union. Manabu tears up and Tashiro asks Reisel if this is what he wants, with him answering that yes it is since everybody acted as they did because they wanted to. Tashiro asks if memories and feelings are separate, with Manabu crying more, and Reisel confirms that they'll still be the same people. This finally makes Tashiro agree and Reisel erases their memories. The next day, Tashiro and Manabu are late again due to Tashiro waking up late. They greet everyone as usual. After the credits, the throne room in Lucadonia is shown with the clan leaders gathered in front of Raskrea. Carias, Rosaria, Rojak, Jejidal, Ludis, and Kay are present, though there are also 4 other mystery people who are not important. Everyone aside from Raskrea is hooded. Jejidal reports that the coffin that appeared in Japan has gone missing again, and that Regis and Sarah's reports stopped after the one where they said they may have met another noble. Raskrea orders Jejidal to go and investigate. Jejidal appears in front of Yiran, with Frankenstein, Reisel, Regis, and Sarah sensing his presence. This leads to Regis telling Manabu and Tashiro to go on ahead to their next class since he and Sarah will be late. M21, Takeo, and Tao ask Jejidal for his identification as nobody is allowed to enter the school without permission, to which Jejidal asks why they're here then and reveals his aura. Regis and Sarah then appear in front of him kneeling and greet him, with Jejidal demanding an explanation for why there are modified humans present. This has Frankenstein question why he's bothering them at work, surprising Jejidal as they are clearly acquainted. Back in Lucadonia, in the throne room, the clan leaders Carias Blurster, Rosaria Eleanor, Rojak Kersha, Ludis Murgas, and Kay Ru are with the Lord, Urga Kinesis de Raskrea. They discuss Jejidal's departure and the possibility of Regis and Sarah having met Reisel, who is believed to be a traitor by the Lucadonians. After the meeting, Carias and Rojak are walking down a hall together. Rojak asks if Carias was trying to defend Regis and Sarah as he has affection for the two. He then says that as clan leaders they must prioritize serving the Lord, which Carias doesn't take seriously. They are then approached by Rojak's younger brother, Rael Kersha, who asks about Sarah but doesn't receive an answer as Rojak simply says that he should be referred to as clan leader, not brother. Carias mentions that Rael was just released from confinement and reaches out to his head, though Rael smacks Carias' hand before he can touch him. At Frankenstein's house, Jejidal talks to Reisel. He learns that Razel has been asleep for the 820 years of his disappearance and tells Razel about the changing of lords from the previous lord to Raskrea, as well as the many changes that have occurred. Razel and Frankenstein also learn about Razel being considered a traitor. Jejidal asks Razel to return to Lucadonia to prove himself innocent, but Razel wants to stay in his idyllic life for a little longer. At the cafe that Manabu first met Tao at M21, Regis, Sarah, Takeo, and Tao are all discussing the recent event. The modified human trio learn about clan leaders, discuss Regis' relation to Jejidal, and have a tangent about hairstyles. Everyone also wonders about the relation between Frankenstein and Jejidal, with all of them unsure of Frankenstein's species. Back at Frankenstein's house, Jejidal is shown to be staying there for his visit. He tells Frankenstein that he still doesn't trust him due to all the nobles he killed in the past. The rest of the episode is a flashback. It starts with Frankenstein having 3 nobles who are part of the Central Order of Knights chained up in a gloomy building. It's revealed that he's experimenting on nobles and is called the Noble Hunter. Furthermore, his powers and dark spear were with him before he ever met Razel. Jejidal and Ragnar Kersha enter the throne room to see the previous lord trying to convince Razel to move in with him. He gives up but reminds Razel that he cares for him and to visit occasionally, sighing and calling him antisocial when he leaves. Jejidal attempts to admonish the lord, but he shuts it down, asking why they've come. Jejidal reports about Frankenstein and that he's a human who's become powerful in an unknown way, so they can't let him roam free. The Lord then sends the two to capture Frankenstein alive as he wants to talk to him. A group of Central Knights attempt to corner Frankenstein by flushing him out with explosives, chasing him to a cliff. Frankenstein defeats them easily by barraging them with Dark Spear. At this point, Jejidal enters, telling the Knights to retreat, and introduces himself. Ragnar also introduces himself, appearing behind Frankenstein, which surprises him. They ask Frankenstein to come with them, which he refuses to do. Ragnar asks Jejidal to stand back and let him fight as he already has an heir, and because he believes it to be a stain on their pride if 2 clan leaders are needed to win. The fight is obviously challenging as Ragnar decides to summon his soul weapon, Cardas, which excites Frankenstein and leads to him using Dark Spear to a heavier extent. Jejidal and Ragnar are surprised by Frankenstein's power, which the latter takes insult to, asking why humans can't hunt nobles when nobles do it freely. The 2 clan leaders are taken aback, Ragnar saying they don't form blood pacts just because, but Frankenstein responds that there are many nobles who treat humans like toys. As Frankenstein's anger grows, he uses Dark Spear more, which backfires as it starts to consume him. This has Jejidal stepping in with his soul weapon, Regasus, to prevent a catastrophe. In the aftermath, Frankenstein manages to escape. His trails of blood leads to the Noblesse estate where he takes and wears one of Razel's shirts. Frankenstein walks through the empty estate until he comes upon Razel, who is staring out of a window but turns around to look at him. After the credits, Razel remarks that Frankenstein is wearing his shirt, which causes him to apologize. Continuing on from the flashback in the previous episode, Frankenstein attempts to trick Razel into thinking he's a new employee, which fails as Razel lives alone. Jejidal and Ragnar then arrive, kneeling and explaining that the Lord has ordered them to bring Frankenstein to him. Razel, seeing Frankenstein's blood seeping through his shirt, uses his powers to change Frankenstein's clothes and says they can't take him as he works in the estate. Frankenstein wonders who Razel is when the clan leaders listen and leave. 5 years after that, Frankenstein and Ragnar are sparring when Dark Spear starts consuming Frankenstein. Dark Spear attacks Ragnar, though he is unharmed, while Frankenstein falls to his knees and Ragnar holds out his hand to help him up, which he takes. Meanwhile, Jejidal tells Razel that he still thinks Frankenstein is dangerous and to at least make him visit the Lord. At night, Frankenstein pours Razel some tea and asks if he was staring out the window the whole day again, learning that the last time Razel left the estate was when he visited the Lord before Frankenstein even arrived. He also asks what Razel is always looking at. In the day, Frankenstein finally goes to meet the Lord and passes by some hooded nobles who obviously don't like him, including Yurkai Agvain. In the throne room, the Lord talks with Frankenstein about various matters like his relation to Razel, which leads to him lamenting about Razel not acting close with him. He also asks Frankenstein why he hasn't formed a blood pact with Razel yet, as well as his role as Noblesse. Frankenstein is taken aback by the Lord's demeanor. The scene then shows a group of hooded nobles complaining about Frankenstein while Jegital, Ragger, and Uruk-hai watch. When the Lord says he wishes Frankenstein and Razel would form a blood pact, Uruk-hai is incensed with Jegital then stepping in to also object in a more reasonable manner. The Lord says he simply wants Razel to be happy, which leaves Uruk-hai even angrier. Some other day, Frankenstein is walking through the castle's hallway when he sees Jegital. The Lord has resorted to using Frankenstein to send Razel messages despite never getting a reply. Frankenstein then asks Jegital to spar with him, which he refuses, warning Frankenstein to not cause Razel any trouble after. Uruk-hai then arrives with two hooded flunkies and tells Frankenstein he'll spar with him, being openly hostile and rude all the while. In a coliseum, Frankenstein and Uruk-hai are fighting with Jegital and Ragger spectating. Uruk-hai appears to be stronger even after Frankenstein summons Dark Spear, but Ragger says that Frankenstein's holding back as he doesn't want Dark Spear to go berserk. Frankenstein realizes that Uruk-hai is seemingly jealous of the attention he receives from Razel. With the twisted manner that it manifests in angering him into going berserk, it then starts to rain and Uruk-hai is shown with a heavily bleeding eye wound while Frankenstein has lost all reason to Dark Spear. Jegital and Ragger step in against Uruk-hai's protests, saying that no matter how hard he tries, he won't be able to beat Frankenstein. Frankenstein unleashes a large attack amidst which a blinding blue-white light pillar appears. As the dust abates, the Lord and Razel are shown to have arrived and are back to back. The Lord asks what they are to do with Uruk-hai, asking Razel to pass his judgment. Razel approaches Frankenstein, blocking his attack though he gets a cut on his cheek. Using the blood from his cut, Razel creates a blood field to subdue Frankenstein, and his blood wings appear. In the aftermath, he reaches out to Frankenstein's cheek where he's also bleeding and brings his thumb to smear the blood against his own lips. There is a zoom in to Frankenstein's eye, and then he is shown floating in a beige void where he hears Razel's voice. Seeing him, Frankenstein reaches out to him. Then back in the real world, he's returned to normal and collapses. Seeing all this, the Lord asks Razel if this is his decision. Frankenstein wakes up in a large bed, bandaged. Then, dressed as he usually is, he goes to see Razel, who informs him that they must go see the Lord together. Razel then asks for some tea, coughing up blood as Frankenstein leaves. Pondering this and what happened in the kitchen, Frankenstein ends up spilling the tea he's pouring. Then, when he gives Razel a cup of tea, it's shown that he cut his wrist and added some of his blood to it. After taking a sip, Razel asks if he agrees to the blood pact and Frankenstein does, kneeling and calling Razel master. This is where the flashback ends. Back in present day at Frankenstein's house, Jegital states to Frankenstein that he regrets ever letting that blood pact occur. The two converse and Jegital is shown having dinner with the household as Frankenstein explains how Razel is enjoying this life. Regis, Sarah, Takeo and Tao are playing a card game as the others watch. Jegital says that Razel has changed, with Frankenstein correcting him, saying that it was the environment around Razel that changed, not he himself. At the balcony, Jegital informs Regis and Sarah that he's returning to Lucadonia. He tells Regis to live at the household until he has to take up his duties and asks Sarah to look after him. He also hopes for the best for the two. Back in the throne room in Lucadonia, Jegital reports to Lord Raskrea that Regis and Sarah were mistaken in their report about possibly having met a noble. She threatens to read his mind, and when he refutes her, she says she'll do it to Sarah, who can't resist her power instead. She then orders Rojak to go get Sarah and put Jegital in prison, which shocks all of the clan leaders. Rael then enters despite only clan leaders being allowed entry, asking to be sent to retrieve Sarah instead. Raskrea allows this, creating a piece of paper with her order on it out of thin air. Rael arrives in Tokyo, Japan. In free study period, Teshiro attempts to get Regis to join a paper airplane flying contest. Regis is surprised when not only Manabu, but also Razel and Sarah are taking part. M21, Takeo, and Tao are too distracted by a group of female students to notice Rael arriving at Yiran. He uses mind control over the whole school, causing Razel, Regis, and Sarah to notice his presence. The trio of security guards notice something is wrong when the female students blankly return to class. Meanwhile, Regis and Sarah tell Razel they'll deal with the matter. The trio confront Rael, who realizes they're modified humans and stabs M21 in the back with his hand. Rael is disgusted by them, but before they can fight, Regis and Sarah step in. Ignoring Regis, Rael is excited to see Sarah and tells her he's come to bring her back to Lucadonia. He hasn't seen her since he proposed to her 10 years ago, as he was put in solitary confinement and only got out recently. When Regis continues to try to talk to him, Rael holds him up in a chokehold and only stops when Sarah asks him to. He leaves when Sarah tells him to, though not before whispering in her ear that he doesn't want to make her sad after saying she should listen to him. Regis asks Sarah if Rael said anything to her, but Takeo and Tao's worry for M21 cuts him off. Back at Frankenstein's house, M21 is recuperating in an experimental pod, while the rest of the household are gathered telling Frankenstein what happened. Regis explains that Rael is the pureblood younger brother of the Kersha clan leader. Tao asks about the proposal mentioned before, to which Sarah and Regis answer that when Sarah declined the offer, Rael destroyed the surroundings and was restrained by Rojak, who then put him into confinement. Regis' age is also learned. He is 199, with Rael being more than twice his age. In Frankenstein's lab, Takeo and Tao undergo a health checkup as Frankenstein is worried about the Union's modification style. They ask Frankenstein how M21 is, to which the answer is almost fully healed, as he has fast regeneration owing from when Razel showed him what he'd be like at full power. Takeo and Tao ask Frankenstein to help them get stronger, as they wish to be able to protect their comrades. Naturally, Frankenstein agrees. At the balcony, Sarah approaches Regis. He speculates about Rael's reasoning for his actions, which could be discontent about his position and the possibility of taking over the Loyard clan. Regis then tells Sarah that she's like family, so he won't let Rael do whatever he wants. Sarah, remembering what Rael told her, places a hand on Regis' head and tells him Rael isn't her type. Not telling anyone, Sarah sets off alone, though Frankenstein and Razel notice. Frankenstein asks his master to let him deal with the matter, and Razel agrees to it, lifting the seal on Frankenstein's power. Sarah meets with Rael on top of a building. He flirts with her and proposes again unsuccessfully, insulting humans while he's at it. That makes Sarah tell him that she doesn't view humans like he does, and that she wants to stay with them rather than with him. This angers Rael, but before he has the opportunity to do anything, dark spear projectiles come at him. Frankenstein asks Rael why he's come to Japan, but he doesn't answer, attacking instead. Upset about both Rael's actions towards Sarah and M21, wing-like energy appears around Frankenstein as he sends more projectiles at Rael, who avoids them with his speed. However, when attacking Frankenstein with two doppelgangers of himself, Rael is impaled in the upper arm by Frankenstein's attack. Frankenstein mentions that Rael has a soul weapon, which Sarah is shocked by and denies, as he isn't a clan leader, but Frankenstein says that he felt it. Rael summons his soul weapon, Grandia, and attacks Frankenstein. This leaves an X-shaped wound on his torso. Frankenstein then summons Dark Spear, and the two's fight reaches a level that has Takeo, Tao, and Razel noticing the effects from home. Regis arrives at Sarah's side, and she asks him to help stop them. Launching an aura beam at Rael, he dodges both Regis' attack and the swing of Death Scythe from Sarah. Rael is shocked that Sarah is willing to fight him. When she demands he leaves, he finally brings out the order from Lord Raskrea, causing both Regis and Sarah to kneel. Sarah accepts the order while Regis is told he can't come along. Rael says that Jejidal is eager to see her, though he may be dead by now, which shocks everyone. Sarah then leaves with Rael. Frankenstein reports to Razel, speculating that Jejidal's situation is due to his not reporting them. Frankenstein then joins Regis on the balcony and tells him they are going to Lucadonia. In Lucadonia's throne room, Rosaria reports to Rasgraya that Sarah is returning and that they may see the traitor soon too. Rasgraya then has a brief flashback to when she was a child and saw her father conversing with Razel. In the after-credits scene, Takeo and Tao convince M21 to let them help with his chores. The episode starts out with a flashback set in Lucadonia. Jejital and Rasgraya are walking down a hallway discussing her duties when they see Razel pass by. Back to the present, Rael and Sarah arrive in the throne room where Rasgraya and the clan leaders are waiting for them. Sarah kneels and greets Rasgraya. Rasgraya asks whether the report about them possibly meeting a noble was false, and Sarah, learning that Jejital has been imprisoned, says that she cannot answer. This leads to Rasgraya using mind control, though Sarah resists it, which causes her pain. Seeing this, Rael speaks up that he met no nobles, only modified humans and Frankenstein. Karias also interjects since Sarah can't handle any more of the interrogation and Rasgraya stops. She orders Karias to put Sarah in jail and Rojak to interrogate Jejital. Frankenstein, Razel, and Regis are in a jet plane making their way to Lucadonia. Frankenstein reassures Regis that M21, Takeo, and Tao will be fine even if the Union turns up, as he has a brief flashback where he gives them pills by the name of T2 that boosts their power. The jet has turbulence indicating that they are over Lucadonia. Rael looks at Sarah, who's collapsed within a cell. Meanwhile, 4 of the clan leaders, Karias, Kay, Ludis, and Rosaria, discuss what's going on in a parlor room in the castle. None of them believe that Jejital or Sarah would betray the Lord. Rojak arrives, having had no luck in interrogating Jejital, and being sent away by Rasgraya, who wants to focus on her duties. There is a knock on the door and a central knight enters, informing the clan leaders that a jet craft has crashed just off of Lucadonia's coast, though they don't know who was on board just yet. Ludis tells him to assemble the knights, deciding to report to Rasgraya after they gather more information. Frankenstein, Razel, and Regis walk through a forest. Regis warns that the forbidden region, made so by the previous lord, is just ahead, and they shouldn't enter as there will be knights patrolling the area, but he's ignored. Entering the Noblesse estate, Frankenstein tells Regis to stay where he is. Frankenstein and Razel go to the sanctuary within the estate where they find the lord's sole weapon, Ragnarok. Sensing something, Regis goes off to see a group of central knights who have discovered their footprints. He covers his face and attacks them in order to knock them out so they aren't discovered, apologizing as he does so. His face is revealed while he fights and the knights are astonished. M21, Takeo, and Tao come to his assistance as Tao introduces them as the RK4. In a room of the Noblesse estate, Frankenstein asks the trio why they're here. They had stowed away in the jet plane as they felt they had to help. Frankenstein and Razel explain to them and Regis that Jejital and Sarah are in trouble due to trying to protect Razel, who is considered to be a criminal that caused the previous lord's death. Frankenstein also explains that Noblesse is a title that only applies to Razel, not the nobles as a whole. Even after hearing the truth, the trio and Regis still wish to help Razel for various reasons. Razel has a flashback where he is having tea in a gazebo with the previous lord, who says Razel has changed ever since Frankenstein came along. The previous lord refers to Frankenstein as Razel's family, who also acknowledges how much the previous lord cares for him. The previous lord then asks Razel if he has any interest in becoming lord. With the flashback over, Razel states that he will go to the sanctuary in the castle. Ludis reports to Rasgraya about the incident with the trio and Regis. This leads them to believe he has taken Razel's side, with only Karias protesting. Rasgraya orders Ludis to make the knights withdraw from the forbidden region and states that Jejital must be punished. Knowing this means forced eternal sleep, the clan leaders protest as they all hold Jejital in high regard. Due to this, Rasgraya decides to give Jejital a choice. Rasgraya has a flashback as she walks along a courtyard. She's doing her duties and talking with Jejital, who's going to see the previous lord who has summoned Razel again. After a montage of her carrying out her work, Jejital informs her that her father has praised her. Wishing to talk with him, she goes to the courtyard where she overhears him asking Razel if he wants to become the lord. She runs away, crying and wondering why her father would choose Razel over her. Arriving at Jejidal's cell, Raskraya informs him that Razel has arrived. She tells him if he tells her the truth of what actually happened during his visit to Japan, she'll spare him. Jejidal does so, but then asks her to punish him anyway for committing a crime. Back in the throne room, Raskraya strips Jejidal of his position as clan leader and sentences him to execution, shocking the clan leaders. She then orders Carias and Rojak to bring the intruders to her. Rael is by the entrance of the throne room, eavesdropping. After the credits, Carias and Rojak walk down a hallway discussing what just occurred. The knights are busy, and the two guarding Sarah's cell are informed by another that Jejidal has been sentenced to eternal sleep. Hearing this, Sarah breaks out with Death Scythe. M21 and Regis are running towards the castle while arguing as usual. Their job is be bait and lure in enemies in order to help Frankenstein and Razel get to the Lord's sanctuary, with Takeo and Tao acting as backup. Rael arrives in front of them. In a castle hallway, Sarah runs into Rosaria, who tells her to return to her cell. Sarah refuses to, causing Rosaria to attack her. Sarah retaliates, saying that she is also a clan leader and is prepared to do what she must. Regis asks Rael about Sarah and learns that not only has she been imprisoned, his grandfather Jejidal has also been sentenced to execution. Rael attacks Regis, but M21 protects him, telling him to go on ahead. M21 ignores Regis' protests and attacks Rael, Takeo backing him up from a distance while Tao also tells Regis to leave. Takeo and Tao take the T2. Regis then leaves while Rael gets angry after sustaining a wound on his face from Takeo's previous shot. As Rosaria and Sarah fight, the castle is being destroyed. Sarah summons Death Scythe, so Rosaria summons her own soul weapon, Blood Witch, in response. The explosion in the castle due to their fight is visible even to Carias and Rojak, the former commenting that Rosaria knows no restraint. Rojak then notices Regis and moves to go after him, but Carias stops him, saying he'll go instead, warning Carias to not let his emotions get in the way. Rojak leaves and Carias does as well. M21, along with Takeo and Tao, whose skin has turned dark gray and are exuding aura as a result of taking T2, find Rael to be a difficult opponent. Needing to be closer, Tao tells M21 to goad Rael like he does Regis, which M21 does successfully. This leads to Rael being hurt by several attacks and summoning Grandia. Frankenstein and Razel turn to look at the light from the summoning from where they are. Razel asks Frankenstein if he's worried, to which Frankenstein says they can be trusted and turns to leave until Razel asks another question. Carias tells Regis to leave Lucadonia until Jejidal is cleared, which Regis refuses to do. Seeing his conviction, Carias gives Regis a challenge, land a hit on him, and he'll help Regis see Jejidal. Rael lands an X-shaped attack on M21's torso, causing him to fall to his knees. With their long-range attacks being unsuccessful, Takeo and Tao come up close to help M21, who's being beat up. This only leads to them being beat up too by Rael, who's treating them like filth. M21 criticizes his attitude, but before Rael can do anything, Rojak appears. He asks Rael, who hides Grandia behind his back, what he's doing. Frankenstein then arrives and impales Rael with Dark Spear's spikes. Rojak moves in front of Rael and, out of respect for Frankenstein having fought their father, summons Cardas. Frankenstein summons Dark Spear too, and the two clash. Back to Carias and Regis. The latter is failing but won't give up. One of the reasons is because he's aware that if he's let go, Carias will be punished for it. Raskraya is in front of the coffin in the sanctuary, thinking about how her father would disapprove of her fighting Razel. From the top of the stairs, she orders Ludis to bring Jejidal and calls for Rosaria telepathically. Rosaria tells a defeated Sarah that the Lord is calling for them. Frankenstein and Rojak have an intense fight as Rael and the trio spectate. Rojak uses various skills and techniques that Frankenstein blocks and counters, causing Tao to exclaim that he's cool. This angers Rael, who launches an attack at the trio. In order to protect them, Frankenstein takes an attack from Rojak. Rael gloats, though is stopped by Rojak's admonishment. Knowing he wouldn't have hit Frankenstein, Rojak wounds himself, lecturing Rael as he does. Carias catches Regis, who's about to collapse. Regis apologizes and Carias is confused as Regis weakly hits Carias' side with his fist. Carias then comments that his time among humans has changed him. In the sanctuary, Jegital and Sarah are manacled and kneeling with Ludes, Kay, and Rosaria around them. Still on top of the stairs and in front of the coffin, Rasgraya tells Sarah that she'll also be executed for helping a traitor causing the clan leaders to protest. Jegital says there's no need for it, saying Rasgraya doesn't want to do it either, which is why they're at the sanctuary where all the previous lords sleep. He defends Razel and Sarah, bringing up Frankenstein when Rasgraya says she'll execute Razel too. Watching his brother be impaled by Dark Spear, Rael asks Rojak to absorb Grandia. Rojak refuses, having known all along that Ragger split Kardas to give to both of them despite only clan leaders being meant to have soul weapons. Frankenstein says Rojak is like Ragger, and then that they should continue the fight. In the sanctuary, Jegital criticizes Rasgraya and reveals to the other clan leaders that she hates Razel because he was offered the position of lord. This shocks them, though Jegital continues on, saying his crime is that he failed to guide her properly and that she doesn't understand the previous lord or Razel. The clan leaders take insult to what he's saying about Rasgraya, and Jegital smiles. He then tells Rasgraya to execute him. Rasgraya acquiesces, summoning Ragnarok and leaping down from the dais. Before she can go through with it, the doors open and Razel enters, his clothes shifting from his Iran uniform to the black and gold of the nobles. After Razel's entry into the Lord's sanctuary, Jegital asks him to take care of those who remain after he enters forced eternal sleep. Razel, on his part, refuses to let anyone be executed. As he approaches, Kay steps up to fight him, summoning his soul weapon, Garant, but his attacks are unsuccessful. Rosaria is next with Blood Witch, but also fails. When Ludes uses Isarok, Razel says that he is from the clan focused on protection, and his attack is destroyed too. Razel then uses mind control to make the three kneel, with Jegital explaining that the Noblesse has power greater than even the Lord, as they are meant to punish them if needed. As the three clan leaders try to resist the mind control, Rasgraya tells them to stand down as she will fight him. She gathers power around Ragnarok, which is sensed by Carias and Regis, as well as those further away: Frankenstein, M21, Rael, Rojak, Takeo, and Tau. This causes them all to head to the sanctuary. Rasgraya attacks Razel with the gathered power, Ludes having to shield himself and the other two clan leaders as she does. He continues to shield them as Razel and Rasgraya clash, with Razel blocking Ragnarok with his bare hand at one point. Once more, Rasgraya tells them to stand back when Razel throws her into a wall, as she wishes to do it alone. Razel then tells her to use her full power. This leads to Rasgraya creating and attacking with a blood field. When her attack fails, Rasgraya collapses, dropping Ragnarok. She wonders if she's meant to lose again, like when her father chose Razel over her. Her clan leaders come to stand in front of her, telling her that they trust her as they prepare to fight Razel together. Razel says it's useless, as only after Rasgraya masters her powers can she hurt him. Kay, Ludes, and Rosaria attack, though Razel deals with them without difficulty. He then creates a blood field, causing Rasgraya to leap out from behind Ludes' shield and create her own. The two clash again, with Rasgraya managing to land a small cut on Razel's face. He says that she isn't alone, as she has her clan leaders, while Rasgraya collapses, being caught by Kay. Once he's finished speaking, he collapses too, and is caught by Frankenstein, who has just arrived. Rojak and Rael arrive right after. Razel then approaches Rasgraya, who prepares herself to be executed. Razel then summons the Ragnarok that the previous lord left behind for him, shocking everyone. The two Ragnaroks resonate, causing a glowing manifestation of the previous lord in a long white gown to appear. At this point, the trio of modified humans arrive. The previous lord explains that he is a residual memory, as well as the truth of what happened. He was not murdered, but instead entered eternal sleep willingly along with some of his clan leaders in order to induce change in nobles like is present in humans. He also asked Jegital to stay behind. When questioned, Jegital explains that he didn't tell the truth due to the chaos caused by the change of lords. Although he had the chance to disprove the rumors of Reazel being a traitor, seeing that it had united Raskraya and the clan leaders, he didn't. He offers his life for lying, with the clan leaders realizing that keeping them unified is also why Jegital was so insistent on being executed. With Jegital once more asking to be executed, Karias finally arrives, barging in and throwing Regis to the floor beside his grandfather and Sarah. Regis asks to be executed along with Jegital, at which Ludis and Rosaria scold Karias. Karias then asks Raskraya not to execute Regis, with Rojak agreeing. The clan leaders all kneel in hopes that she will listen to them. Raskraya then walks to Jegital, summoning a power that destroys his and Sarah's manacles. Kneeling, Raskraya rests her head against Jegital, saying that she could never kill him. The two Ragnaroks combine into one, with the previous Lord's manifestation saying a few last words. He tells her he loves her and bids her farewell. Raskraya reaches out to him as he disappears and cradles the complete Ragnarok as she falls to her knees. The next scene has M21 and Regis bantering as usual, with Takeo and Tao being amused. Frankenstein and Sarah enter the room, Frankenstein explaining that they can now return to Japan and that Regis and Sarah have gotten permission to go with them. Reazel is looking out at the gazebo where the previous lord would have tea with him when Raskraya arrives. She asks him what her father was like, with Reazel having a flashback continuing on from when he was asked if he wanted to be lord, where he refused the offer. He then replies that the previous lord was a proud, doting father, making Raskraya laugh. Returning to Japan in a jet plane, Frankenstein serves Reazel tea. Reazel says that one day the Noblesse may not be needed, as the clan leaders and Raskraya are shown in Lucadonia. He then says he wants ramen once they're back. The last scene has everyone back at Iran, with Manabu and Teshiro greeting them happily.